The first scream isn't human. It cuts through the dawn like torn tin. Horses, somewhere beyond the frost-silver pasture, scatter in a fever of hooves. I stop breathing. On this land, silence is the only thing I own outright. Even the wind feels on loan. Then I hear it. A long carved note, not loud but piercing, sliding on air like a blade drawn slow from a sheath. A whistle. Not a ranch hand's barked call. Not a child's toy. This sound is engineered. Exact, coded, unsettling. It climbs, drops, blossoms into a second tone that hangs, vibrating the old nails in my porch rail. The stallion in the back pen rears to it, eyes glassy, muscles coiling with an intelligence that isn't his. My coffee cools in my fist as dust rolls up from the flats. Another whistle. 2 fast bursts, a pause, then a drawn-out line that curves around the mesquite stand. The sound doesn't point. It pulls. The horses respond like iron filings to a magnet you can't see. I step down from the porch, boots crunching brittle grass. The barn sighs in its joints as if remembering something it won't say. The second scream turns to thunder. The herd spills from the far arroyo in a rushing black seam, and in the middle of that seam is a rider I can't name. Small, balanced, bareback, one hand on a rope, the other lifted to her mouth where the gleam of a silver whistle flashes against morning. The rider leans, notes crack like light, high, low, high, and the chaos edits itself. Mustangs wheel into a clean arc, hooves fanning dirt like skirts, and no one collides. The whistle lowers. The animals settle as if plugged into a quiet nobody else in this county can hear. The rider slides to a stop by my east fence. She pulls the whistle from her lips and tucks it into a leather lanyard at her throat. The whistle is not store-bought. It's polished bone etched with shallow notches, hung on a strap that looks older than both of us. "Morning," she says, turning her head toward my voice. Her irises are the pale blue of winter glass, unfixed, not landing on me so much as addressing the space I happen to occupy. "Your north gate's hanging wrong. Catches wind wrong, spooks the young ones. You ran a wild herd through my lot," I say, because it's what a man says when he's scared of admiring something. "They ran with me," she answers, calm as a hymn. Different math. I want to ask her how she did it, why my stallion, a bitter barn-eating son of a storm, listened to a slip of a rider who can't meet my eye. Instead, I say the thing that proves this town is already in my mouth. "You're the Delaney girl, aren't you?" "May," she confirms. "Not a girl. I work." I notice her hat brim, sweat-salted rawhide. The gloves, mended twice. The boots, cut to flare for a heel she can find by touch. Her bay mare flicks an ear toward my stallion and then, on an almost imperceptible chirp from the bone whistle between May's fingers, looks away. Obedience like that is not broken. It's bartered. "Gates that way?" May tilts her chin more than her eyes. "Right," I manage. She smiles without showing teeth, and for a breath the morning softens. Then the wind shifts and brings a smell I know too well. My debt, distilled into oil and paper and men. Diesel, collar starch. A truck easing down my road, official and slow. The whistle at May's throat catches sun again. Those shallow notches glint like a map you only see if you tilt it just right. Not decoration. Markings. It's the kind of detail that changes stories later, when you're past the part where choosing mattered. "Mr. Hart?" A voice calls from the road. "Jesse Hart? We'll need a word about your arrears." The word arrears arrives heavier than the whole herd. Behind it, laughter. 2 farmhands in the back of a county truck already tasting their tail. Blind cowgirl leading ghosts, one says. The other answers with a whistle of his own, a cheap, dull wheeze that dies against May's silence like a moth on glass. May doesn't flinch at the insult. She lifts her head as if listening to something underground, something older than men with clipboards. Then she puts the bone to her lips. One note, low, steady, patient. The kind of sound you only make when you're sure the earth will answer. It does. Under my boots the soil thrums, faint as a heartbeat. The stallion lowers his head, eyes softening as if he remembers another life where fear wasn't the only tool he had. The county truck idles, confused by whatever they can't smell, can't measure, can't monetize. May pockets the whistle, tips her hat toward me and says, "Your place is not done speaking. You just forgot the language." I look at the roadmen, at my flaking paint, at the ledger numbers that don't bend. Then I look at May Delaney, who can't look back, but sees more than anyone in this valley. "I'm listening," I say. They say I was a good man before the drought stacked like plates in the sink. They say I had a steady laugh, a dog that came when I called, and a way of making fence posts stand straighter just by leaning near. They say things I don't remember. What I recall are winters that bit deep and summers that burned the edges off every thought. Banks don't care about weather, only dates. My wife packed a bag when speech turned to chalk and left it on the table like a small, silent dignities. My son, smarter than me, took work 3 counties over wiring houses that bloom at night while ours shrink. The dog stayed. His name is Boone. He forgives me daily. The ranch is a geometry of scarcity. 1 barn that wheezes. 2 windmills that only spin when there's nothing to do. 3 pastures that used to be 5. The stallion I took in on a promise. Ghost-colored, scar-necked. A thing made of bad bets and beauty. I named him Lazarus because I'm sentimental where it hurts most. If you're new here, if you're watching this with your coffee or on your bus or in a lunch break that tastes like the metal of your own plans, hear me. This story is not only mine. In places like this, you end up believing survival is a solo sport. It isn't. If what I'm telling finds you, tell me where you're from in the comments. Corn country, canyon country, city heat, salt air. Say your name if you want, or just the sound your sky makes. And if stories like this mean something to you, if you want to see where this goes, how a bone whistle, a blind cowgirl, and a busted ranch do math together, subscribe, hit the bell. This channel lives on folks who lean in and say, go on. We're building a porch long enough for all of us to sit. I don't wake up a hero. I wake up counting. Diesel, salt lick, feed, the stale coffee it takes to make the first 2 hours of a day bend into shape. The county wants their slice. Rourke Land and Mineral wants something I can't name yet, but can feel in the way their reps stand, like they're already measuring a thing they haven't bought. The rumor is they're buying up rights old as rust, paying pennies for paper that controls everything beneath your boots. Water, gas, gravel, ghosts. The morning May rides into my mess. I'm towing the edge of selling the north lot. It's the ugliest piece I own. Alligatored soil, a stand of cottonwoods that lean like old men over a dry draw. But there's a hush out there I keep mistaking for peace. Every time I almost sign, I drive up and sit with it until the pen cools. May's arrival brings a different quiet. Not absence of sound, but the arrangement of it. The way thunder finds its place behind rain. The way a horse fills his ribs when he learns you won't ask the wrong thing twice. She isn't what the town says. Not a sideshow. Not a pity we dress up in cheap jokes. She's a working hand who knows a language most of us forgot exists. You'll ask where she came from. From here. From the kind of family the county calls scrappers and the church calls projects. Her sight slipped out of her life as if it had another appointment. She didn't flail after it. She learned her other senses until they stood up straighter. Somewhere along the way, she found a whistle. Found isn't right. The whistle found her. Old bone. Etched. Tuned to shapes of air I can't draw. Tuned maybe to the arithmetic of the land under us. Later, I'll learn those notches are notes and those notes are commands and those commands are promises. Later, I'll learn why men like Caleb Rourke want it gone. For now, I'm just a man with a broke-back ledger watching a woman who sees with everything but her eyes call a herd without breaking a sweat. And because I'm tired of keeping quiet, because the porch the internet gives us might be the only honest town square left, I say again, tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe if you want the rest of this. This isn't a miracle story. It's a work story. But there are miracles in it, hiding like water in rock. Stick around. The county men leave with threats shaped like receipts. May stands where she dismounted, palm on her bay's shoulder, feeling the horse's breath the way a person listens to a hymn they know by heart. Boone pads up, offers his head. She kneels and scratches the place behind his ear that hurts when storms are near. Who taught you that whistle? I ask. Something under the cottonwoods, May says, almost smiling. Something that doesn't sleep right. I take her to the north lot because if a day starts strange, you lean into it. The truck complains over Washboard Road. Mesquite flicks against the doors like hands changing their minds. May rides behind us, unhurried, the whistle bright at her throat. Clouds stack over the far ridge, grackles arguing about it in the wires. Boone noses the window gap, tasting stories. We park where the land dips. The cottonwoods don't so much grow as remain. Silver bark scored with lovers' initials older than the lovers. Roots clawing dry soil for a rumor of water. The air is different here, a little colder. Sound moves oddly, as if the space has elbows. May tilts her head and steps off the bay before I can get the door open. There, she says, pointing where the draw deepens. Hear it? I listen, and all I get is my own pulse and the migraine edge of an oncoming front. Then the whistle in May's hand makes a small sound. Just a test note. A "do you live here?" in a language I don't speak. The note threads into the dip of the draw, and something replies. Not out loud. In the bones. Boone growls a polite warning, the way dogs do when they want you to think you still make the decisions. The stallion in my trailer, Lazarus, who hates trailers, hates me, hates his own shadow, stamps twice, then goes still as fence post. A draft works over the grass, but it's not wind. It's temperature deciding things. What am I listening to? I ask, not careful enough to hide the shake in my voice. Air that was taught, May says. Air that remembers. She walks toward the biggest cottonwood. The trunk swells and warps around a split once mended with wire that bit the bark and disappeared. The ground at its base is scabbed with old flood. May kneels, palm flat to dirt. This place holds pitch, she says. Not wood pitch. Sound pitch. She smiles. A private thing. There's a cavity under us. You mean a pocket like a cave? I shoot a look at the dry arroyo. We don't do sinkholes here. Not a cave, she says, hand skimming across soil until it stops, as if landing on the lid of a chest. A box. We dig with what we have. A short spade, my hands, Boone's ridiculous enthusiasm. The top layer gives easy, all sand and gossip. A foot down, the dirt changes, heavier, darker, smelling like wetted iron. The shovel rings. Once. Again, a note pure enough to draw May's head around. You're not hearing that with your ears, she says, sure as weather. You're hearing it with your ribs. She's right. The ring blooms inside me. I scrape carefully. The shape we reveal is a board that doesn't rot like normal board. Old cedar, maybe. Pegged corners. The edges are chamfered, and there's a pattern carved into the lid. Shallow, a line of notches that match the language on May's whistle so closely my skin tightens. We work the box free. It's not big. A child could lift it, but we go slow because intimacy ruins easily. A rusted hasp surrenders under a twist of my pliers. The lid sighs. Inside, a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. A smell, tallow, paper shut too long, the breath of an instrument. I peel the oilcloth back and find precisely what the land said we'd find. Whistles. Not one. A set. Bone, wood, horn, each etched with marks too deliberate to be decoration. Tucked among them are notebooks tied with cotton cord, pages crowded with dots and lines. Not music notation as I know it, but diagrams of wind. The first page isn't a score. It's a map. Shallow streams inked thin, old corrals sketched like ribs, cottonwoods drawn as individual trees, not a grove. At the bottom, a name I almost recognize but don't. Delaney. May's hands hover over the instruments without touching. Her breath shortens. They're tuned, she whispers. To what? I ask. But the answer has already built a little house inside me. To this valley. To its hollows and teeth. To the way sound carries at 5 a.m. in late fall. To the way mustangs learn the shape of a call that isn't a threat. To the way a ranch keeps its secrets by telling you all of them at once if you stand right. The notebooks tell a story in ink I can't read alone. A man named Patrick Delaney, an immigrant who came with nothing but tools and a dead brother's promise, mapped the valley a century ago with his ears. He studied how the wind spoke through grass and rock, how crows altered their calls over different soil, how a horse's ear flick was more honest than any weather vane. He built whistles to talk back. Under the notebooks, wrapped separate as if for church, sits a last object, a brass tube the length of a forearm, capped at one end, perforated with holes like a flute. It's heavier than I expect, scratched with 2 letters, PD. That's not a whistle, May says, hearing the shape my hands make around it. It's a key. To what? I ask again, softer. To what's buried deeper, she says, tilting her face toward the cottonwoods, toward the hum under our boots. To the thing Rourke thinks he owns because he bought paper. A truck backfires on the county road. We both flinch, half expecting men to spill out of the ravine with the smell of starch and diesel. Nobody comes. The day holds its breath. Why would your people hide this, I ask. Because the valley forgot how to listen, she answers. Because men started measuring worth in what could be burned. not what could be sung back into place. She reaches finally and lifts the bone whistle from the box that matches the one at her throat. Its notches are deeper, its polish worn to a mat. She raises it, waits, then blows a note so soft I hear it only because the air curves toward it. The ground answers. A low, steady thrum. Lazarus stamps once, then lays his big head over the fence rail like he's been told a bedtime story. The cottonwoods shiver without wind. Boone sits and tilts his head, listening to a pitch I can't catch at all. "Teach me," I say before I can stop myself. "You don't learn this like rope or spur," May says, smiling sadly. "You unlearn the parts of yourself that shout." I tuck the notebooks into my jacket, feeling like a thief and a son at once. The brass key catches a slice of light and throws it into the drawer. The echo of May's note lingers, not dying so much as nestling into the shape the valley saved for it. That's when the pressure comes. It arrives as rattle first. Bottles in the bed of a truck, loose chain, a cough made of money. 3 vehicles crest the rise. 2 white pickups with Rourke Land and Mineral stenciled loud on the doors, and a flatbed with a corral panel rattling like bad teeth. In the lead, Caleb Rourke himself, tall, burnt sugar handsome the way a mean man sometimes is. A smile you'd buy at auction and regret later. "Afternoon," Rourke says, stepping out like he already owns where he stands. "Heard you were poking under your cottonwoods, Mr. Hart. Thought I'd pay neighborly respects." He looks at the box, sees the instruments, and his smile refines. "Well now," he says softly, "would you look at that?" May doesn't. She stands still, head angled so the size of their boots becomes a picture in her mind. The whistle hangs against her throat like an oath. "We're on my land," I say, because boundary is sometimes the only spell we have left. Rourke tips his hat toward the cottonwoods, toward the dry draw, toward something deeper. "Paper says what's under your land belongs to me," he answers. "You'll find I'm respectful of a man's topsoil but not of his fantasies, and this," he nods at the box, "this is a fantasy I can't allow." "Allow," May repeats, as if tasting the word for sand. Rourke gestures and the workers fan out with an efficiency that scares me more than bravado would. One heads to the truck for a drill. Another drags a chain. The third, young, lots of shoulder, can't help himself. He laughs, a small, cheap sound aimed at the whistle around May's neck. "Town says you make songs for ponies," he jeers. "Town says you can't even see your own feet." May turns her face toward him. The look on it makes him step back, just half a shoe, but enough. She raises the whistle and breathes one short, hard note. The bay mare's head snaps up. Lazarus lifts, muscles tall as arguments. The cottonwoods answer in leaves like applause. Rourke's smile doesn't change. "Miss Delaney," he says, voice pleasant. "I admire a woman with talents. I pay for them when they are for sale. Is your whistle for sale?" "It's not mine to sell," May says. "It's the valley's. Then the valley can take a check," he answers lightly. "Or we can let the sheriff count." The day narrows. The strange event that started like a curiosity arranges itself into sides. Above us, clouds cancel sun in a single clean motion. Boone leans against my leg. I feel the brass key heavy in my pocket, warm as if it grew there. They start with the draw. It's the softest belly of the land, the place men like Rourke go first. His crew carries augers and authority. May and I stand between their drill and our box like the foolest version of brave. Rourke keeps his voice sweet. "No need to make this theatrical," he says. "We'll take a look, write down what we find, and if there's nothing under there, you can keep your penny whistles and I'll send you a fruit basket." "If there is something," I ask. "Then we will develop it responsibly," he says, as if responsibility is a jacket he puts on in court and leaves in the car the rest of the time. The young worker with the laugh shoulders the auger. The drill tip bites dirt. The note that rings out is not the clean chime of earlier. It's a hurt sound, a bent pitch like a name mispronounced. May flinches. "Stop," she says, and no one does. So she blows the whistle. Not loud, not big. A shape of sound like a door closing softly in the right house at the right hour. The bay's ears prick. Lazarus lowers and plants. Boone goes still, head high, taking inventory of a future none of us can see. The air around the drill thickens. The auger meets something and skates sideways, metal complaining. The young worker stumbles. The drill chews nothing. Dust lifts, and then settles without going anywhere. "You're interfering," Rourke says, but he's looking at the ground, monitoring a vibration he can feel but can't put in a spreadsheet. May moves to the cottonwood and rests her palm against its bark. The tree answers. There is no other word for it. A slow resonance builds. A sustained note you don't hear so much as wear. The brass key in my pocket warms further, pulling my hand like a magnet. I draw it out. What does it unlock? I ask, voice low. The pitch door, May murmurs. Padraig's trick. She kneels at the place we dug and sets the bone whistle from the box beside the brass tube. Her fingers move across the tube's holes with surety that humbles me. Left hand tells direction, she says, for me, for the valley, for the past. Right hand tells depth, breath tells mercy. She raises the tube. It isn't a flute. It's a measuring stick that sings. She blows a tone so pure the drill crew could cut glass with it. The sound threads into earth, finds a seam and comes back altered, lower, fuller, blooming with harmonics that paint in my head like warm water. There, she says and taps the dirt with the brass tube. Don't you touch that. That seam is a lung. Rourke folds his arms. A lung, an aquifer. I translate, heart texting my ribs at triple speed. A shallow one close enough to drink, closer than anyone's mapped. Rourke's charm thins. If there's water, there's gas locked with it. We have jurisdiction. You bought signatures, May says. You didn't buy right. She tilts the tube, changes fingers. The tone slides in the ground. That stubborn animal hums back. A second seam answers. Deeper, cooler, not water. Something else singing on a lower floor. What's that? I ask. Old air, she says. Old rock. A hollow that doesn't want to be a hole. Rourke nods to his crew. Tess bore there, he says, pointing not at the shallow seam but at the deeper answer. You cannot drill into a resonant cavity, May says, gentle like explaining fire to a child. You collapse it. You kill a note that took 1,000 years to learn itself. Notes don't pay taxes, Rourke says, and that's when the mask finally slips. I stand between the auger and May because some mistakes you only get to make once. The young worker squares up. Boone bares his teeth, the honest kind of teeth that settle arguments. The worker toggles the drill. For a second, the world becomes a fork on a plate. Caleb, I say, walk away. File your papers. If the law says we must, we'll meet there. But you drill now and you don't only break ground, you break something you can't fix. He smiles a small, tired smile, the kind mean men wear when compassion bores them. Move, Mr. Hart. No. The sky decides to participate. A wind snaps in from the west, hot as a secret. Dust lifts, swirls, makes its own walls. May's hat brim stutters. She doesn't look rattled. She looks tuned. Jesse, she says quietly. Yes. Lazarus. It's not a question. I rope the stallion with breath, not line. The horse moves to me as if we rehearsed this kindness. May lifts the bone whistle from the box. 2 notes, high-low. Lazarus steps to the drill and plants a hoof over the mark May tapped with the brass tube. The lung, the seam. The horse's body becomes a fence, a prayer, a law. You'll get him hurt, the young worker says, something human finally leaking into his mouth. May blows again. Lazarus lowers his head. Breath like bellows over the drill motor's whine. The ground under him hums. The auger's tip glances and shivers. Metal fails the way lies do. Suddenly, loudly, with embarrassment. The bit snaps, flies, dies in the dust like a spent hornet. Everything stops. Rourke's eyes calculate new math. He gestures the crew back with a flick of 2 fingers. A different tactic occurs to him, one older than law. Pressure favorable in a courthouse, terror favorable out here. He steps closer. Not to me, to May. You're a talented woman, he says softly. But you have mislaid an essential fact. Talent without ownership is charity. The land under this conversation belongs to me per the instruments I own. If you obstruct, you invite the sheriff. If you persist, you invite damages. And if you bring that circus trick, he nods at the whistle, into my affairs again, I will have it taken from you as evidence. May's face is gentle, a pasture after rain. You can't take a language, she says. You can only fail to hear it. Rourke's mouth tilts. Watch me. He turns and leaves, tossing over his shoulder. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. We return with paper and men who know how to read it. They go. The dust they stir settles in our teeth. I want to laugh, cry, run, sleep for 3 days, sell the ranch, marry it, salt the road, plant a flag, call a lawyer, fire every lawyer I can't afford. Instead, I sit on the earth that hummed to a whistle and go still. We just escalated, I say. We just translated, May answers. Now you know what's here. You can't unknow it. What is here exactly? My mouth is dry. Water? More than that. She touches the brass tube. This valley is an instrument, and your north lot is its soundboard. Padraig tuned it. He taught the air and the ground how to carry clean. He made a map not of where things are but of how they speak. And Rourke wants to silence it because silence is profitable, I say. He wants to extract a note and sell it, May corrects. Same as always. We take the box, the whistles, the notebooks, the key. We move Lazarus and the bay. Before we leave, May stands under the largest cottonwood and plays 3 notes I can't describe without making nonsense with my tongue. The tree answers. The draw settles. The seam breathes the way a sleeping child does when the room finally finds its right temperature. On the road, Boone rests his chin on my knee. The valley behind us holds and hums. The town laughs that night. You can hear it through the diner windows. Forks on plates, a neon sign that sounds like mosquitoes. 2 boys imitating a whistle just to see who'll turn. Word moves faster than truth. By closing time, May is a witch with a toy and I am her old man sidekick leading a petting zoo. Rourke drinks coffee in the corner, casual as a cat near a bird bath. He tips the waitress like a banker tips a ledger and leaves without paying attention to the way the room shifts around him. 8 a.m. comes like a due date. The sheriff's truck, county blue. The survey crew, tripod legs like spiders. Rourke, crisp. The morning is too clean for what it's about to be. May is already at the cottonwoods, hat low, posture easy. She's dressed for work, not war. I am not dressed for anything except the way my hands won't stop shaking. Mr. Hart, the sheriff says, a good man trapped in a small budget. Caleb here has papers saying his outfit owns subsurface rights under Parcel 19C, which maps to your north lot. He's within law to test. We're here to make sure nobody gets hurt. Then tell him not to drill the lung, I say, pointing to the mark we know and the world denies. The sheriff looks at Rourke. Rourke looks at the paper. Paper looks back the way paper does, bland and final. May doesn't wait for the ritual to exhaust itself. She lifts the brass tube. The surveyors, to their credit, shut up. The tone she makes rides the morning like a hawk. Clean, curved, inevitable. It comes back full, warmed by the ground's answer. The sheriff's eyes go wide. He doesn't know what he heard, but he knows he heard something. You got a permit for that? He asks, already embarrassed. Permit for breathing, May says. And then she does something I've never seen. She plays a sequence. Not a single note. An instruction set. High, mid, low hold, held at the edge of breaking, then dropped slow as dusk. The valley wakes. The cottonwoods shiver from the roots up. Lazarus, free in a pen I opened before dawn, steps to the rail and drops his head like a bishop before the sea. The draw exhales cool, and from the far side of the lot, wild horses appear. Not many. 6, maybe 7. A band I've seen only as shadows, now shaped and muscled and real. They pause when they see the trucks, the men, the tripod. The mare at their front flicks an ear to May's music and then, as if grateful, leads her family toward the cottonwoods, toward the shade that lives between notes. Control your animals, Rourke says tightly. They aren't mine, May answers. The sheriff shifts his weight. He is a decent man, but decency is a poor shield against a court date. Caleb, he says, trying fairness on for size. Maybe do your first boar out yonder, away from the, tree music. 2 boars, Rourke says. One where we please, one where the lady's instrument suggests, if only to satisfy local curiosity. It is a trap dressed as concession. May nods anyway. Do the first in the south rise, she says. You'll dull your bit on stubborn gravel and find nothing but old anger. It will feel like work. Rourke smiles. And the second? May lifts the tube, plays a small question, listens to the answer. 6 feet west of this route. She marks the spot with the toe of her boot. 14 feet only. Stop when the note changes. He gestures. The crew moves. The auger bites the south rise. It groans, chews, spits frustration. Dust coats everyone's teeth with the taste of sullen rock. Rourke keeps his face neutral. The surveyor notes readings that are not the readings he hoped. The second bore goes in where May says. At 7 feet, the note in the drill motor changes. A harmonic I can't justify with physics, only with wonder. At 14, it sighs. The crew chief, who has drilled enough holes to know when a hole wants to quit, lifts his palm. Rourke nods, jaw tight. Now what? He asks. Listen, May says. We do. At first the sound is nothing but wind and blood and humiliation. Then faint. So faint I think I imagine it. A coolness rises from the cut. Not a gust, a presence. Boone moves first. He pads to the bore and breathes. His ears go back, then forward, then soft. He licks once, solemn as a vow. Water, the crew chief says, surprised into respect. Shallow lens, the surveyor adds, professional despite himself. Potable, likely. Rourke recalculates. Water changes law. Water is politics. He can't bully a lung. You could have found that with a sounder, he says, trying to reframe the miracle as a paperwork problem. You didn't, May answers. The sheriff clears his throat. Given potable water near surface, any subsurface extraction will require environmental study and public comment. We gotta suspend drilling until that's done. Rourke's smile snaps. This is theater, he hisses. It's procedure, the sheriff says, stiffer now that the law has something to hold. The town men gathered at the fence murmur. Someone tries the cheap whistle again. It dies smaller than before. Rourke is not finished. You bought yourself a week, he tells me. Maybe 2. Nothing lives long on delay. Some things do, May says, touching the cottonwood. He looks at the whistles in the box, at the brass tube that refuses to be owned. He looks at May as if memorizing the problem she presents. Then he says, fine, and walks away the way a man walks when he knows the next play is not here. He makes that play that afternoon, at the arena. The county fairgrounds are dust, diesel, and dreams you can buy on a day pass. They're also where May has been practicing at night when the bleachers empty and lights hum. She doesn't ride barrels. She rides silence. But that day, a flyer goes up. Open exhibition, whisper taming, $500 to any rider who beats the posted time. Rourke's money. Rourke's dare. Don't, I tell May. He built this for you to fail in public. I don't owe him failure, she says. I owe the girls watching the back fence. We haul to town. The sun is knife bright. The announcer calls her name, makes a show of pausing on the Delaney, lets the crowd enjoy itself. He doesn't say she's blind, he says special. It's worse. May rides in on the bay, no saddle, halter line coiled loose, whistle ready. The pattern isn't barrels. It's a set of ground poles and flags designed to make a horse second guess. Men whoop, boys jeer. 2 women fold their arms and watch with the serious faces of people making a long bet. Rourke stands in the shade, perfect as a storefront. His watch gleams. May lifts the whistle. What she does looks like nothing until it looks like everything. Short notes treat the poles like sentences to be parsed. A long glide invites the bay to lengthen, to trust space. A double chirp asks for a pivot that would make a cutting horse brag. The mare reads the air and writes it under her hooves. The time posted on the board gets nervous. Halfway through, Rourke makes his move. He signals a hand near the chutes, and a gate bangs. A bronc, panicked by bad timing, bolts, skidding dirt into the pattern. The crowd surges toward cruelty. May doesn't flinch. She plays 2 impossible notes, one for her mare, one pitched like a mercy toward the bronc. The bronc hears something older than fear and finds the rail. The bay threads a needle of air past flying hooves and slides into the last turn so tight her ribcage brushes dust like a kiss. She crosses the line. Silence is louder than any cheer. Then the clock speaks and the fairgrounds learn a new word for humble. May's time beats the posted mark by enough that you can see the number as a story, not just a score. Someone laughs, surprised into happiness. It spreads. Even the men who came to dislike her clap because this is America, and we like a clean win almost as much as a mean loss. The announcer has to change his tone mid-sentence to fit the new shape of the day. Rourke leaves before the prize cashes. His shadow stays like a weather front. May dismounts, breathes into her mare's neck, then walks to the rail where 2 small girls in hand-me-downs grip chain link until it prints diamonds into their palms. How'd you do it? One asks. Voice 14, eyes 100. May leans close. I didn't tell her what to be, she says. I listened to what she could be and made room. Rourke files papers. The county files notices. The sheriff files patience. The aquifer buys us time. Time buys me a choice. I sell a different parcel, a scrubby south strip with no song in it, to a neighbor who wants goats. The money is not salvation. It is a hinge. It buys feed, fixes the windmill that sulked. It buys a week for a lawyer who reads the old deeds like scripture and finds a clause none of us had the energy to imagine. Padraig Delaney's map, once recorded in the county ledgers as supplemental survey, carries a protection no one remembered. Any resonant cavity worded as cultural acoustic feature God bless the clerk who reached for poetry. Requires preservation review before excavation. It is not a wall. It is a door we can close. May becomes less a rumor and more a fact. Kids show up at dawn with cheap plastic whistles and leave understanding that instruments aren't toys. They're keys. Old men stop pretending they didn't hear what they heard under the cottonwoods. Women who have been whistling work songs their whole lives come and make shapes in the air that fit the valley so well. May cries without noise. Lazarus learns to stand without shaking. I learned to ask for help without hating myself. Boone learns nothing. He was already perfect. Rourke doesn't vanish. Men like him don't. They wait for rain to undo what sun built. But the hole he meant to punch in the valley never opens. The aquifer stays unsucked. The seam, the lung, the old air, alive. I pay down what I can. I'm not rich. I'm solvent in the currency that matters. Sleep, breath, the way a gate swings when it's hung right. The ranch isn't saved once. It is saved daily, the way sobriety is saved. I say grace over diesel, over salt, over the bone whistle May wears, which is not jewelry but a vow. When the championship rolls around, the state stock show that treats taming as art, May doesn't go to win people. She goes to tell the ground under that big arena a story in its own language. The town laughs on the bus ride up because laughter is the cheapest thing they own. They stop laughing when the clock does what it did at the fair, only bigger. Cameras catch the way May breathes a horse through fear like a midwife talking a child through late-night thunder. The belt buckle they hand her is tacky and bright. The check is not life-changing, except it is because it proves a way of listening can feed you. Reporters come for the headline. Blind cowgirl wins big using whistles and leave with notebooks full of words they don't know how to sell. A few of them try anyway and get it half right. The rest of us have the whole version, and that is enough. Rourke sends a letter. No hard feelings. Business. May burns it over the sink and hums a note that smells like rain. I stand under the cottonwoods and play what little I've learned on the brass tube. The valley corrects me, kind but firm. I change a finger. The pitch slides into true. Somewhere below, the seam breathes, unbothered by men or clocks. If you watched this to the end, you're part of this porch now. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me what your sky says. If you want more of these stories, if you want to see how we keep this place singing, how May teaches the next girl at the fence, how Boone retires like a saint, tap subscribe. Watch the next video. It's already waiting with its own weather. And remember the part that saves me when the ledger looks like winter. You can't take a language. You can only fail to hear it. Here, we hear. Here we stay. Here we work. Here we let the ground sing back.